is ready to go. And no secret, we've known Kayte a long time.
Yes.
And like anyone who travels full time, there's, places I won't name any of those, places you don't want to go. Certain stops.
Sure.
And then there's places you love to go to. And I know Kayte is a huge fan of this road trip. Joining us right now, the analyst for the Sacramento Kings, the talented, the intelligent, the temperamental, the recovering from a foot injury.
Yes.
One only makes her own dog food, not for her, but for her dogs. Kayte Christensen, good morning.
Good morning. Oh, my goodness.
I threw like 9 jokes in there, and 2 of them were very hidden. Did you get every one?
Oh, my gosh. You're just lame. As long as you find you funny, I guess that's okay.
Come on. There's some good ones in there. My favorite ones are the ones that are jokes, but then they have another layer to them that I know you get.
Oh, well, congratulations, Dave. I'll pat you on the back.
Thank you.
You.
The problem is that more often than not, they fly right over her head. And then I get mad because she didn't get them.
Because I don't really listen to you.
Yeah, that's a great point. That is the truest thing ever said. Kayte, if the Kings lose tonight, will it be the worst loss of the year?
Oh, gosh. Sure, Dave. Does that answer your question?
Would it be a worse loss than Detroit at home? In your opinion?
Wow. Why do we start this off this way?
Because Toronto is missing. They've lost 7 in a row, and they're missing half their team. And the Kings
7 in a row, 9 of their last 10.
Yes.
But they went to Denver, and they were up 20 against the Nuggets in Denver. So the dangerous thing about teams that are missing a lot of guys, as we well know, is that the guys that are available are playing incredibly free. So yeah, I mean, this is, I love how people determine, like, you look at the record and so on and so forth. And it's like, oh, yep, that's a win in the win column. Like, you have to go out and play every single game, and it would be an incredibly disappointing loss. Yeah, it would, but I don't know if it's, worst losses of the season yet while we're still in the middle of it.
We call it a Wolody, worst loss of the year.
Would it be the best win of the year, though, Dave, if they won?
No.
Oh.
No, it would be a win, a very workmanlike, not easy, but routine road win over a bad team by a serious team, and not unserious team, a serious team looking to make a postseason run. That's what tonight's win would be. They're favored by 11.5.
Yeah, if you're wanting to be where your goal is, which is postseason, and preferably to not have to do it via the play-in. Yeah, this is a must-win game tonight. But this is a rough road trip. Like they have to really buckle down and take it seriously. You're playing at 7:30 tonight in Toronto, and then you play tomorrow night in Washington D.C., which I don't know if anyone wants to do the math in terms of how late you're going to be getting into Washington, D.C. Traveling to Canada is no joke. Like, we left at 10 a.m. yesterday, and I think we got to the hotel about 7 p.m. last night. And so, when you think about, like, tonight we go through customs like everybody else. We go through the main airport. You take all your bags, you do the whole thing. And you're doing that at what time? 11 o'clock at night? Like, this is an interesting back-to-back that the league scheduled. So, when you look at schedule, you have to look at all of the components other than just the other team's, win-loss record, who they've got, all these things. Like, this is a challenging road trip, and they have to take it incredibly seriously.
The other night, Kayte, the worst part about the game ended up being in the first 2 minutes. The injury to Kevin Huerter, it didn't look good when it happened. Maybe the news, I don't know. Maybe the news is slightly better. I don't even know how to quantify it, because I don't know that we know for certain what the overall outcome and how long he would be out. But I don't know what you know about that part. And just secondly, just him going through that. That, as a former player yourself, that is just the worst part when you get hurt at any point. But certainly this late in the season, it's got to be really rough for Huerter.
Yeah, incredibly rough. And I don't know any of the details yet in terms of length and what's going on and all of that. Like, that's just something you kind of got to, hope for the best. And we'll see. You want him to be healthy. I think the hardest thing as a player is that he hadn't played incredibly well in the game before against New York. And so, if you're going to go down, you would prefer to have it be while you're playing well versus when you're trying to kind of, garner up some or, muster up some kind of momentum. But injuries are tough, and the Kings have, over the last 2 years, for the most part, been really, really healthy. And, the injury to Trey and now the injury to Kevin Huerter, like it put the Kings in a position where they have to be able to rely on kind of some of those, second unit guys that, haven't had consistent minutes throughout the season. But I have to take my hat off to Mike Brown, because I talked about it on the broadcast the other day. Like, a lot of coaches in this league, like in the beginning of the season, they'll kind of give some, kind of second, third string guys some different opportunities. And if they don't take advantage or don't play kind of the way that the coaching staff wants them to play, you don't see them again. They're kind of bottom of the bench guys that, you see a couple minutes in blowout games, right? But Mike Brown has been really, really good about with Davion Mitchell, Keon Ellis, Chris Duarte, like those guys. Like, he's been great with going back to them and not, waiting long stretches of time, going back to them, giving them another opportunity. They play, maybe 10 games where they're playing really well. So it kind of keeps them motivated to be involved, keeps their confidence up, and they've grown. And those guys specifically, those three, I think this kind of segment of the season, kind of post All-Star break, I think they've been fantastic. And so that bodes well when you look at some injuries that are going on. And, with kind of two of the, bigger guys, if you will, Kevin Huerter is someone that can kind of float 2, 3, and sometimes in small lineups, he'll put him at power forward, but not really. And then you've got Trey Lyles, who he can play 3, 4, 5, basically based on kind of small or big lineup you're going for. And so to have those guys be the ones that are out, like, I'm curious now to see what it's going to look like rotation wise and how Mike Brown is going to handle it. But I think that, Davion, Keon, Chris, those guys have stepped up, and I think that they have a lot of faith in them.
Kayte Christensen joining us. I just want to go back to your previous answer just to kind of clarify some stuff we're seeing on the chat, and I get it. When you say this is a difficult road trip, you're talking schematically. Like, on paper, this is an incredibly easy road trip, with the exception of
travel.
Yeah, like they should
Which
by
all of these things factor into it, right? All of those things factor into it. It isn't just about like, oh, we go to the gym and we play a game and this is their record and this is who's available. No, there's a lot of other things that factor into kind of difficulty level. And when you look at the Kings' strength of schedule from the very beginning of the season, third most difficult schedule in the NBA. And the reason that is you look at road trips like this. You look at distance traveled to play an opponent. You look at how many days the opponent has had off, like all of those things factor into strength of schedule. And the Kings have the third most difficult schedule in the NBA. And you look at this road trip, and then you look at the road trip that they have in April. They're going to go and they're going to play in New York, then go to Boston, and come back to New York. Then they're going to go to OKC. Like those are tough opponents, back to backs, like those types of 3 and 4 days against top level, opponents. Like those things factor into strength of schedule. So that's what I'm referring to.
Kayte, as far as, we just referred to Huerter and being out, we don't know how long, but that does mean opportunities for others, whether it's deeper in the rotation guys, if that's Davion or Duarte, but certainly Keon Ellis. What have you liked most about watching him play consistently now with this group?
I just love his defense. Like, I love his defense, and the fact that he actually gives De'Aaron an opportunity to not have to be kind of on the toughest perimeter opponent to start the game. He allows De'Aaron to kind of take a step and defend somebody else. And obviously there's a lot of switching and stuff, but to be the primary defender to start off on kind of, the main guy, like the Jalen Brunsons of the world, if you will. And he picks them up. He's a dogged defender, and he's going to give it to them, a consistent approach and be tough on them the entire time. But then he also, from an offensive standpoint, I feel like he's gained a lot of confidence. And I think a lot of that is the way this offense works is, everyone's going to get opportunities, and no matter what, they want you to take shots. If you're open, you take the shot. Like sometimes when you're coming in as kind of like a second, third string guy, when there's injuries, like you almost hesitate because it's an open shot, but am I supposed to take it? Do they want me to take it? But that's not how this offense works. And so I think that there's a lot of things that have kind of built up his confidence. But the thing I like about him the most, he had 5 blocks the other night. I mean, come on. Like, he is a really, really, really good defender.
Kayte Christensen joining us. Talking about Toronto, we haven't talked to you since a couple of pretty good games, I guess I'd say. The Grizzlies game, which was good despite the fact that it shouldn't have been, and the Knicks game on Saturday. Let's go back to the Knicks game. Playoff atmosphere. There's blood in the air. It was physical as heck. I had made the comment to Jason, we talked about this, that that referee crew, there are a lot of different ref crews that would have called that game completely differently, and we probably would have had a different result. That crew decided that night to let a lot of things go in that case. You and I haven't talked about it yet, but what was your thought on the ref Saturday?
Well, you did get a very angry phone call from me.
See, that was my joke, Katie.
And clear.
Let me stop you. I won't say, I'm not going to say what was in the conversation, because
I'll talk about it.
Okay, because she calls me right after the game's over. I didn't even think she was done yet. Mm-hmm. I get a phone call seconds after the game's over, and it was one of those calls where I immediately went outside because I put it on speaker so I can hear better, and I held the phone like 5 feet away from my ear, and I wanted to make sure my kids weren't listening to Aunt Katie talking to me about the game.
Yeah, no, I'll start this off by saying I have complete and utter respect for officials, because they have, a very difficult job. And I don't think poorly of any of them as human beings or individuals or anything like that. But just like anybody else in any other career, everyone can have a bad day. And that was the worst officiated game I've ever been a part of in my entire nearly 2 decades in the NBA. It was complete and utter dog crap. It was awful. And they let it get out of control. They had, they did not manage the game well. Domantas Sabonis got slapped in the face twice on a triple team in one possession, and they call him for a double dribble. Like, Kyle was talking about the last 2-minute report in that game following it against Memphis, and I didn't even bother looking at it. It was just awful. It infuriated me to a level where I thought it was just ridiculous. And to call a game like that is really difficult, because you never want to pile on to officials. You don't want to do that. And there is, a certain component of it where normally those games even out. They look at things, they review things at halftime, and they're like, oh, we're missing some stuff. We're going to do it. Like the first play of the game, if memory serves correctly, was Hartenstein pulling Domantas Sabonis to the ground from the waist. It was completely obvious. And Doug Christie, Mike Brown, Domas, I saw multiple times those 3 guys talk to the officials, showing them what they were doing to Domas in the low block. And it was like complete and utter denial of that taking place. Like, they didn't fix it. They didn't make it better. They didn't make adjustments. And the way that they let the game get out of control, the physicality of that game, that's how players get hurt. And
were you surprised there wasn't a fight that night, or at least a fracas?
If Trey Lyles were available
right.
that game,
that's what we said.
Like, we don't really have guys on the team that are like that. Like, at one point, Domas was so frustrated. It was after that getting smacked in the face twice and then being called for the double dribble. Like, it was end of the game situation. He kind of just threw his hands up in the air and shook his head. Like, we don't have personality, and that's not a bad thing. We don't have many personalities on this team that are going to get to it. But, even seeing Malik Monk, when he got fouled, sit on the courtside seat and just take a breath, like take a beat. He was so angry. You could tell the look on his face. He was so angry with what was going on that he had to kind of self-regulate for a second. And it kind of harkened to, it made me immediately think, and I think I said it to Kyle in the break, of like Malice in the Palace when Ron Artest laid on the scores table. And if anyone's seen the documentary on that, he was talking about like he was seeing a therapist during that time, and he was having a hard time self-regulating. And she was like, hey, whenever you feel yourself about to kind of implode, if you will, lay flat, take a moment, take a breath. And that's when the beer was thrown. And that's when it went into utter chaos. But that moment with Malik sitting on the sideline, it reminded me of that, because I could see the frustration in Malik and him trying to self-regulate and just don't say anything, don't do anything, take a breath, calm yourself down for a split second. That was how out of control that game was. And I think it's a complete and utter failure by the officials to let a game go that way. Win or loss, I don't care. Even if the Kings had come out with the win, it doesn't matter. the way that game was officiated is dangerous, and that's how players get hurt. And from my perspective, that's the worst part about the whole thing, because you don't want to ever, as a player, have your livelihood or your season put in jeopardy because the officials lose complete control of the game.
You know, Kayte, as part of that game, one of the takeaways I had was New York obviously was physical. We're talking about that, the way it was officiated, or they let things go. But I thought the Kings handled the physicality, and if that's been a question of them, I was encouraged by that, even though it ended up in a loss. And so I think it was good for them to go through that kind of game.
Yeah, I thought that they handled it well. I thought they matched it. I think they have really over the last 4 or 5 games. If you really look back, trying to remember because it all runs together. With the Milwaukee game, the New York game, like they've done a really good job defensively here. I mean, going into the game against Memphis, the 3 previous games, they were averaging, holding their opponents under 100 points a game. Like defensively, I think that they have kind of, picked it up in terms of their physicality, their attention to detail. And that's a great thing. And I thought they did a great job in the Memphis game as well in terms of the physicality of it. So there has been some things that have come out of, say this last 4 or 5 game stretch that I think are really, really promising.
When you look at, and this has kind of been a theme all year, when you look at a game like the Knicks, you guys just alluded to, in a game like the Grizzlies, I like a lot of people sit on the surface and go, well, if they play like they did against the Knicks, they're going to beat the Grizz by 25. The Grizz are missing, kind of like tonight. The Grizz are missing pretty much their team. And, next thing you know, what was the guy's name? Lawrence Arabia?
Jake LaRavia.
Jake LaRavia is hitting, hitting corners, whoever. Can you put I get the whole, everyone gets paid. These are all NBA players. People have opportunities, but ultimately it's talent on talent. If you're saying other players get opportunities and they're going to step up, then isn't the counter to that, well, our guys are getting complacent and not playing to the best of their ability mentally and physically because
I think that's easy. That's an easy place to take it.
But is it wrong?
I think that, well, if you'll let me answer, I'll get
you
it out
interrupted
for
me
you.
last time. We're having a conversation. Jeez.
Well, I mean, I know where your question is going. So instead of waiting 3 minutes, I was just going to go ahead and answer it for you.
Canadian Kayte sucks.
No, I mean, I see where you're going with it. Obviously, I think that's a component. I'm not going to deny that it's not, but I also want to just from the standpoint of looking on the other side of it. One of the benefits of players that are playing and stepping up when there are injuries is there's 2 things. A, they're playing incredibly free, right? Which is what Memphis does, which is 100% what Toronto does, which is why they're dangerous. And they've played in really close games during this, last 10 game stretch of theirs where they've only won 1 game. But again, it's like they lack experience because there's a lot of injuries. So the thing about it, you play free, but also you don't have a great scout on a lot of these guys. And so much of the scouting in this league is about, understand, it's so expensive. Hey, in these situations, if he comes off of this screen action, he's going to go left. If he comes off this screen action, he's going to go right and he's going to pull up to his left. They do an incredible amount of scouting and just a deep dive into, tendencies and things like that. And I have to give credit to the players. They know it. They pay attention, they drill it. They watch specific film on the guys that they're going to be defending. There's the extensive scout to that degree that really helps you prepare for a game. And, to be honest, with a lot of these young guys that are dealing with injuries, you just don't have them. So I think it kind of goes to, there's a lot of things that factor into it. And then of course there's the mental standpoint where it's whether you're aware of it or not, you're this is second, third string guys. It's, not going to be as difficult, not going to be as challenging. And that's where you can kind of set yourself up for failure sometimes.
So how is your health? How's the foot from Kyle stomping on it?
The foot is okay. Kyle was very concerned. He actually checked in with me yesterday to make sure my foot is okay. It is totally fine. Kyle gets very, very excited. And that's what, makes him Kyle, is that he, in those, I might talk with my hands or whatever. Kyle, when he makes a call on a very exciting play, he jumps up out of the chair. He's very excitable. And so I just apparently my foot was collateral damage in that, but it is all good.
Hasn't he broken multiple chairs this year?
I think we're like 2 or 3.
Okay.
They've got wheels on them. And so sometimes when you jump up and like the wheel, like he snapped a wheel or 2. Yeah.
And finally, 2 questions. Number 1, we're getting comments. Are you at a zoo or a dog park?
No, yeah, I apologize, but I was at Team Film when I had to come on this interview, so I stepped outside. So while we've been on this interview, like it's on a floor where there's conferences, and now the players are coming out from breakfast and film, and so this is the reality.
No need to apologize. You got to do what you got to do. It just sounded like a bunch of dogs. Which, by the way, if you want a puppy, let's talk when you come back. The dog sucks.
Is the new puppy giving you some difficulty?
Dog sucks. We need doggy Prozac. It won't go to sleep. And then the question from the audience, which I think is a good one, Katie, because you do travel so much. Other than like clean socks and undies, the obvious stuff, what's like the one thing you travel with that you can't live without?
Well, I'll tell you what, I forgot my AirPods on this trip, and I'm realizing how critical those are. Yeah.
All right.
No, I mean, I've been doing this for so long. Like my bags are like, I always keep my toiletries packed. Like when I unpack, when I come home from a trip, I repack the toiletries and I don't know. I mean, probably my AirPods, like it's pretty, like for plane flights, buses, like all of that. It's, I'm learning that they're pretty important.
They should have like team issue extra AirPods. It's an NBA team worth $3 billion. Let's go.
Oh my gosh.
A little Kings logo on them. Remember when we got the Kings logoed headphones?
Yes, I do.
It was a great moment.
Yeah, you were so excited about those on the plane trip to China.
There were headphones with the Kings logo on it. How are you
wearing now?
How are you? No, these I made. I actually ordered the stickers and put them on myself. No, they were like branded on there. And Katie's like, yeah, they're headphones, Dave. Get over it. Boy, that was a fun 17-hour plane flight.
Yeah, because that was when you had really not been flying for your whole adult life. And then all of a sudden, you got to go on this long trip, and I got to be your seatmate. And it was like everything was so exciting to you. And
it was. They had warm cookies. They had a menu.
Act like you've been here before.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm like the kid with the golden ticket, the Willy Wonka thing. I'm doing somersaults and having
so it really was like traveling to China with a 4-year-old. I'm not over exaggerating that.
On that note, Kayte Christensen from her favorite stop on any trip, Toronto, Canada, joining us to analyze and then some. Hey, Katie, have a great trip, and we'll see you when you get back.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Don't forget your AirPods. Bye-bye. Love you.
She already did.
She did. Yeah. Also get off the wallet and buy a pair. I'm pretty sure they have them in
exchange
Toronto.
rate.
Oh, yeah, they're all AirPods. We'll take a break. When we come back, Jason, what to watch in the Western